In the distant future, Earth had become a planet of dust and barren landscapes. The once blue skies had long since faded to a dull, hazy red. Humanity no longer roamed its surface. Instead, scattered colonies lived in massive, self-contained domes where oxygen was artificially generated, allowing the survivors to live. Outside the protective bubbles, oxygen had vanished. A global catastrophe, triggered by human exploitation of resources, had caused the very atmosphere to break down, leaving Earth without the life-giving gas. Life outside the domes was impossible. What little plant life remained had withered. Animals had long since perished, and the oceans had evaporated, leaving dry, cracked seabeds. The Earth had become an inhospitable wasteland. Yet, somewhere in the depths of space, a mysterious force had begun to take an interest in the forsaken planet. Deep in one of the domes, a young woman named Mira worked tirelessly as an engineer. She had grown up in the artificial environment, never having seen a real tree or felt the natural breeze on her face. The closest thing to nature was the oxygen farms, massive indoor facilities where plants were engineered to produce the precious air that kept the domes livable. But even those were failing now. The plants were dying, and no one knew how to stop it. Mira had been working on one of the farms when she received a strange signal on her communication device. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before, an unknown frequency, pulsing with rhythmic patterns. She tried to decode it, but couldn't make sense of the strange symbols that appeared on her screen. Puzzled, she sent it to the scientists in the central dome for analysis, but they dismissed it as a malfunction. However, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. Later that night, as she lay in her small, cramped quarters, the signal returned. This time, it was stronger, more insistent. The symbols danced across her screen in rapid succession. Mira sat up, staring at the display, her heart racing. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the signal stopped. In its place was a single word, help. Shocked and confused, Mira tried to trace the origin of the signal, but it seemed to come from nowhere, or rather, from everywhere. Was someone or something reaching out to her from beyond the dome? The idea seemed impossible, but Mira couldn't ignore the eerie feeling that had settled in her chest. The next day, she returned to her work, but the signal haunted her thoughts. She mentioned it to her best friend, Jax, a fellow engineer who specialized in communications technology. Jax was skeptical at first, but when the signal returned once more, he too became intrigued. Maybe it's a remnant of some old satellite, Jax suggested as they sat in a dimly lit control room, analyzing the data. Some pre-catastrophe tech still orbiting the planet. Then why is it broadcasting help? Mira asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. Jack shrugged, but even he seemed unnerved by the signal's persistence. Over the next few days, the signal grew stronger and more frequent. Mira and Jax worked in secret, trying to decipher its meaning. The more they delved into it, the more they realized it was not just a cry for help. It was a message. One evening, as they were poring over the data, the signal shifted again. This time, instead of symbols or words, an image appeared on the screen. Mira gasped. It was a star map, showing the location of a distant planet far beyond Earth's solar system. At the bottom of the map, there was another message. We are coming. Jax leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. What does that mean? I don't know, Mira whispered, but I think we're about to find out. The next few days were tense. The signal continued to broadcast, and though they didn't fully understand its origin, it was clear that something or someone was trying to communicate with them. Then one evening, as Mira was finishing her shift, the sky outside the dome lit up. Everyone in the colony rushed to the windows. It was as though the sky, once dull and lifeless, had been set on fire. A brilliant light streaked across the horizon, growing brighter and brighter until it hovered above the colony like a second sun. For a moment, there was complete silence, and then the light began to descend. Panic spread through the dome as people scrambled to understand what was happening. Mira and Jax raced to the control center, trying to make sense of the readings on their screens. The object was massive, bigger than any spacecraft they had ever seen. It didn't look human. As the light approached the ground, a wave of energy rippled through the dome, causing the lights to flicker. The air around them felt charged with electricity. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the light dimmed, revealing the shape of a sleek, alien vessel hovering just above the ground outside the dome. Myra's heart raced as she watched the ship lower itself onto the cracked, dusty earth. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The vessel was unlike anything she had ever seen, smooth, metallic, and pulsating with an otherworldly glow. The air around it shimmered, as though it were distorting reality itself. Before anyone could react, a hatch opened on the side of the ship, and a figure emerged. It was tall, slender, and distinctly alien, with pale, translucent skin that seemed to shift colors in the light. Its eyes were large and black, with no visible pupils. Despite its strange appearance, there was something oddly familiar about it, as though it had been watching them for a long time. The alien stood at the entrance of the ship for a moment before raising its hand in what Mira could only assume was a gesture of peace. Then, to everyone's shock, it began to speak. Its voice a series of melodic tones that somehow translated into their language. "We have come to help," the alien said, its voice calm and soothing. "Your world is dying, but we can save it." The crowd of colonists murmured in disbelief. Mira and Jax exchanged glances, their minds racing. Could this alien really be the source of the signal? And if so, what did it want in return? The alien's eyes settled on Mira, as though sensing her thoughts. "You are the one who received our message," it said. "You have been chosen to help us restore balance." Myra's mouth went dry. "Chosen? For what?" "To bring life back to this world," the alien replied. "But first, you must understand the truth. Your planet's oxygen was not simply lost. It was taken." The revelation hit Mira like a blow. Taken? By whom? And why? Before she could ask, the alien gestured toward the ship. "Come with us, and we will show you." Against her better judgment, Mira stepped forward, her curiosity outweighing her fear. Jax tried to stop her, but she shook her head. "I have to know," she said, her voice steady. With a final glance at her friend, Mira followed the alien into the ship. The interior was vast, filled with strange technology and glowing symbols that pulsed with energy. The air was thick with a faint, sweet scent, unlike anything she had ever smelled before. The alien led her to a central chamber where a holographic projection of Earth appeared. But it wasn't the Earth she knew. It was a vibrant green world, teeming with life. Oceans shimmered under a bright blue sky, and forests stretched as far as the eye could see. "This is how your planet once was," the alien said softly. "But that was before the others came." "The others?" Mira echoed, her heart pounding. The alien nodded. "A race of beings from a distant galaxy. They feed on oxygen, draining entire planets of their life force. Your world was one of many they have consumed." Myra's mind reeled. Could this be true? Could Earth's destruction have been caused by an alien race, feeding on the very air they needed to survive? "We have been tracking the others for centuries," the alien continued. "We have found ways to stop them, but we arrived too late to save your planet. However, all is not lost. With your help, we can restore what was taken." "How?" Mira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The alien gestured to the hologram. "We possess the technology to reverse the damage, but we need a human to initiate the process. Someone with a connection to this world." Mira hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Could she really trust these aliens? Could they truly restore Earth? Before she could respond, the alien placed a hand on her shoulder, its touch surprisingly gentle. "You are the key to your planet's survival, Mira. Will you help us?" Mira took a deep breath, her mind racing with possibilities. She thought of the dying oxygen farms, the suffocating domes, the lifeless wasteland outside. If there was even a chance that the alien was telling the truth, she had to take it. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm. The alien nodded, a faint smile playing across its lips. "Then we begin." Over the next few hours, Mira was shown how the process would work. The aliens had developed a device capable of synthesizing oxygen on a massive scale, replenishing the atmosphere and restoring balance to the planet. But it required a human's life force to power it, a sacrifice that only someone connected to the Earth could make. Mira knew what that meant. Mira understood the gravity of the situation. The aliens had been clear. Restoring Earth's atmosphere required more than technology alone. The device they had designed was capable of drawing in the remains of oxygen and replicating it across the globe, but the process needed an anchor, a living being tied to the essence of Earth to sustain the regeneration. That anchor would be her. Back in the alien ship's central chamber, Mira stared at the hologram of a revived Earth. It was both beautiful and heartbreaking, a glimpse of what the planet had once been. She imagined the forests, the oceans, and the wildlife that had thrived before everything had been taken from them. "If I do this," she asked, her voice soft but steady, "will it really bring the oxygen back? Will Earth live again?" The alien, whose presence had become more familiar to her in the past hours, nodded gravely. "Yes, but it will not be instantaneous. The process will take time. The atmosphere will regenerate, but the return of life will be gradual. You will not see the world reborn, Mira. Not in your lifetime." Mira closed her eyes, letting the weight of that truth sink in. If she did this, she would never witness the Earth she dreamed of. She wouldn't see the green return to the forest or feel the cool breeze of natural air on her face. But she knew that the generations that came after her would. They would walk under a real sky, live in a world where they could breathe freely. It was enough. Jax's face flashed through her mind. He didn't know what she was planning to do. She had left him behind at the dome without telling him the truth. How could she have explained it to him, though? That she had chosen to sacrifice herself for a planet that was all but dead? He would never have let her go. "I wish I could tell him," she whispered to herself. "We can send a message," the alien offered, their tone gentle. Mira nodded, her decision final. "Yes, I need to say goodbye." The alien guided her to a console, and with a few gestures, a connection was established. Myra's heart raced as the screen flickered to life. After a moment, Jax's face appeared, his expression filled with confusion and concern. "Mira, where are you? What's happening? Are you okay?" he asked, his voice laced with worry. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she began to speak. "Jax, I don't have much time. There's something I need to tell you." His brow furrowed as he listened, and as she explained the situation, the aliens, the device, the sacrifice, his expression shifted from disbelief to horror. "No, Mira, you can't do this," Jax shouted, shaking his head in denial. "There has to be another way. Let me talk to them. Maybe we can find another solution." "There isn't another way," she said softly. "This is the only chance we have to save the planet. And I've made my choice." Jax's face crumpled, tears filling his eyes. "Please, Mira, don't leave me." Her own eyes burned with unshed tears. "I have to, Jax. For Earth. For everyone." There was a long, heavy silence between them, and then Jax finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to say goodbye." Mira smiled sadly. "Then don't. Just remember me, okay? And live. Live for both of us." Jax wiped at his eyes, nodding even though he couldn't find the words. "I'll miss you," he whispered. "I'll miss you too," she said softly, and then, before she could change her mind, she ended the transmission. The alien stood beside her, silent but watchful, as she composed herself. "It is time," they said gently. Mira nodded, her heart heavy but resolute. "I'm ready." The alien led her to the chamber where the device had been prepared. It was an intricate piece of technology, pulsating with an ethereal light that seemed almost alive. As she stepped closer, the device began to hum, sensing her presence. "This will not be painful," the alien assured her. It will be peaceful. You will become part of the Earth's new breath. Mira stood before the device, her pulse steady, her mind clear. She had spent her entire life confined to a dying world, but now she had the chance to give it life again. She wasn't afraid. As she reached out to place her hand on the device, she felt a strange warmth spread through her body. The energy from the machine flowed into her, and she could feel herself becoming one with it, as though her very essence was merging with the planet itself. The sensation was overwhelming but serene, like drifting into a deep sleep. Her thoughts began to blur, and for a moment, she saw flashes of green, vivid, vibrant forests, rivers flowing with clear water, birds soaring through the air. It was as if the Earth was showing her a glimpse of what it would become, a future she had helped make possible. And then, with one final breath, Mira closed her eyes and let go. Years passed, and the process initiated by Mira began to take hold. The dome still stood, but their oxygen farms no longer struggled to keep up with demand. Outside the protective barriers, the atmosphere was changing, slowly, steadily. The sky began to shift from its dull, lifeless hue to the faintest shade of blue. It was a long journey, but life was returning. In the central dome, Jax worked tirelessly, overseeing the restoration efforts. He never forgot Myra's sacrifice. Her name became a symbol of hope for the survivors, a reminder of what had been lost and what was being regained. One day, as Jax stood on the edge of the dome, looking out at the horizon, he felt a soft breeze brush against his face. It was the first natural breeze he had ever felt, and as he closed his eyes, he could almost hear Myra's voice in the wind. Earth was healing. Slowly but surely, the world was breathing again. And Myra's spirit lived on, carried in every breath of air that the planet took. As the years passed, the slow resurgence of Earth's atmosphere became more than just a scientific marvel. It was a symbol of hope, unity, and resilience. Word of the planet's restoration spread to the other domes scattered across the globe. Scientists from various colonies came together, sharing resources and knowledge to accelerate the healing process. For the first time in generations, humanity felt the stirrings of a future that wasn't confined to sterile domes or oxygen masks. Life beyond their artificial barriers seemed possible once again. Jax became a leader in these efforts, always driven by the memory of Mira. He never spoke of her sacrifice to others, except in quiet, personal moments, but the weight of it was present in every decision he made. He had promised her to live for both of them, and he intended to keep that promise. He led expeditions outside the domes, carefully monitoring the growing patches of greenery and testing the air. Each year, the oxygen levels rose. Small plants began to emerge from the barren soil, the first signs of life returning to the planet's surface. It wasn't just the Earth that was changing. Humanity, too, was evolving. As the atmosphere became more breathable, the rigid social structures within the dome started to break down. People no longer saw themselves as isolated survivors, but as part of a greater collective effort. The domes, which had once been symbols of survival, became centers for research, cooperation, and exploration. One day, while out on an expedition beyond the dome, Jax and his team discovered something remarkable. They were exploring a region that had once been a dense forest, now slowly regrowing, when they stumbled upon a strange, glowing structure buried beneath the earth. It looked like a crystalline shard, pulsating faintly with light, as though it were alive. The team approached cautiously, unsure of what they were seeing. Jax's heart raced as he drew closer. There was something familiar about the energy it emitted, something that tugged at the deepest parts of his mind. He reached out, his fingers brushing the surface of the crystal, and in an instant, he was overwhelmed by a flood of memories. Visions of Mira, of the alien ship, and of the moment she had made her sacrifice. This is connected to her, Jax whispered, his voice thick with emotion. The crystal wasn't just some alien artifact. It was a remnant of the process that Mira had initiated. It was a part of the technology that the aliens had used to restore Earth's atmosphere, and somehow, It had taken root in the planet itself. As the team studied the crystal, they realized that it was growing, expanding beneath the surface like the roots of a tree. It was helping to terraform the planet, releasing small bursts of oxygen and energy into the surrounding environment. The realization hit Jax like a wave. Myra's sacrifice had not only saved Earth, but her life force had become intertwined with the planet. She was still there, in the air, in the growing plants, in the very soil beneath their feet. The discovery of the crystal changed everything. With its help, humanity could accelerate the process of regeneration, restoring Earth's atmosphere at a much faster pace. But it also raised new questions. If this technology could rebuild a planet's ecosystem, what else could it do? And were there other alien civilizations out there who had mastered the same power? As the years continued to pass, Earth's transformation accelerated. The skies became clearer, the oceans slowly refilled with rainwater, and the forest began to reclaim the land. Wildlife, carefully reintroduced from preserved genetic material, started to repopulate the planet. It was a new world, a rebirth that Mira had made possible. But Jax could never quite shake the feeling that there was more to Myra's sacrifice than they understood. The crystal, though dormant for the most part, occasionally pulsed with a strange energy, as though it were trying to communicate something. And sometimes, when the wind blew just right, Jax thought he could hear Myra's voice in the breeze, whispering to him from the depths of the planet itself. The aliens who had come to Earth vanished shortly after Myra's sacrifice, their mission seemingly complete. But they had left behind a mystery, one that Jax couldn't stop thinking about. What were the others that the aliens had spoken of, the beings that had drained Earth of its oxygen in the first place? Were they still out there, waiting to strike again? Jax's thoughts turned to the future. Earth had been given a second chance, but it was clear that the universe was far more complex and dangerous than they had ever imagined. Humanity would need to be ready for whatever came next. They would need to explore beyond their restored world, to seek out other civilizations, to forge alliances, and to defend themselves if necessary. In the end, Earth was reborn, not just as a planet, but as a beacon, a symbol of hope and resilience in a galaxy full of challenges. Myra's legacy lived on in every breath they took, in every tree that grew, and in every star they gazed at from the surface of their once dead world. And though Jax never forgot her, he knew that her spirit was with him, always. As he stood on a hilltop overlooking the newly restored forest, Jax smiled, feeling the wind against his skin, fresh and alive. He closed his eyes, letting the breeze carry him away. Somewhere out there, the universe was vast and full of unknowns. But for now, Earth had been saved, and it was only the beginning. As Earth continued to heal, humanity's gaze turned outward. The success of the planet's restoration sparked a new age of exploration. Scientists, engineers, and dreamers all worked tirelessly to understand the alien technology that had saved them, hoping it could unlock the mysteries of the cosmos. The crystalline structure that Jax and his team had discovered became a focal point of this research as they delved deeper into its origins and capabilities. The crystal was more than just a remnant of alien tech. It seemed to pulse with life, resonating with the planet itself. The more they studied it, the more they realized its connection to the Earth wasn't just technological, it was organic. It was as if the crystal had fused with the planet, becoming a living part of its ecosystem. And with each pulse, it sent energy into the ground, stimulating the regeneration of the atmosphere and the growth of new life. Despite their success, there were still unanswered questions, especially about the mysterious entities known as the Others, the ones who had drained Earth of its oxygen to begin with. The aliens who had helped restore the planet had left no further instructions or warnings, disappearing as quickly as they had arrived. But Jax couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of the story. There was something bigger at play, something lurking in the shadows of the universe. One evening, while working late in the lab, Jax noticed an anomaly in the crystal's energy readings. It was subtle, but unmistakable, an increase in activity, as if the crystal were responding to something outside of Earth. He called for his team, and together, they ran more tests. The energy fluctuations grew stronger, and soon they realized what was happening. The crystal was transmitting a signal out into space. Could this be a distress call? One of the researchers asked, eyes wide with concern. Jax's stomach twisted at the thought. Or a beacon, he replied grimly. The crystal might be alerting someone or something. Before they could delve deeper into their analysis, a message came through from the Planetary Defense Network. Unidentified objects had been detected entering the solar system. The timing was too coincidental. Whatever the crystal was sending, something had received it. Panic swept through the domes as news spread. Earth was still fragile, not fully restored. Humanity wasn't ready for another threat, not so soon after narrowly escaping extinction. But there was no time to prepare. The unidentified objects were closing in fast, and they were heading straight for Earth. Jax watched from the command center as the objects came into view. Massive ships, unlike anything they had ever seen before. They were dark and ominous, their surfaces gleaming with an unnatural, almost predatory sheen. These weren't the peaceful aliens who had helped save them. These were something else. Something dangerous. As the ships descended into the atmosphere, Jax felt a cold dread settle over him. The others had arrived. The alien ships didn't attack immediately. Instead, they hovered ominously above the surface, sending waves of fear through the population. Humanity had no real way of defending itself. The weapons they had developed were primitive compared to the advanced technology these new arrivals possessed. All they could do was wait and hope that negotiations were possible. A transmission came through, an alien voice, deep and resonant, filled with authority. "We are the ones who breathe the stars," it said, sending chills down everyone's spine. "This world is ours by right. You have delayed the inevitable, but we have come to reclaim what was taken." Jax's heart pounded. He knew this had to be the others, the first aliens had warned about. The very beings that had stripped Earth of its oxygen to begin with. They had returned to finish what they started. In the days that followed, Earth's leaders scrambled to make contact, to find some way to appease these powerful invaders. But the others weren't interested in diplomacy. They saw Earth and its resources as theirs by right. To them, humanity was an obstacle, a nuisance to be swept aside. Jax, however, had another plan. He had spent years studying the crystal and its connection to the planet, and he believed there was a way to use its power to protect Earth. It was risky, but it was the only chance they had. Gathering a small team of scientists and engineers, Jax returned to the site where the crystal had first been discovered. They began working around the clock, tapping into the crystal's energy and trying to unlock its full potential. If they could use the crystal to create a protective barrier around the planet, they might be able to repel the other ships and prevent them from launching an all-out assault. As the alien ships prepared to make their move, Jax and his team activated the crystal's core. The ground shook, and a brilliant pulse of light shot out from the crystal, spreading across the sky like a massive dome. For a moment, everything was still. Then the alien ships fired, massive beams of energy crashing against the barrier. But the crystal held. The barrier was strong. Earth's leaders watched in awe as the others' attacks were repelled. The barrier, powered by the crystal and Earth's very essence, was impenetrable. Jax had bought them time, but he knew it wasn't a permanent solution. The others wouldn't give up so easily. Days turned into weeks as the standoff continued. The others remained above the planet, their ships circling like predators. The barrier held, but its power was draining. Jax knew they couldn't keep it up forever. In a final desperate move, Jax and his team devised a way to reverse the crystal's signal, sending a pulse out into the galaxy that would disrupt the others' control over their ships. It was a gamble, but it was their only chance to end the threat once and for all. When they activated the reverse pulse, the results were immediate. The alien ships shuddered, their systems going haywire. One by one, the massive vessels began to lose power, their engines stalling as they drifted aimlessly in the sky. With the others' fleet disabled, Earth was saved once again, but the cost was high. The crystal, drained of its energy, cracked and disintegrated. The barrier fell, and the pulse that had saved them was gone forever. Earth had won the battle, but the victory came with a sobering realization. The universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined, and there were other forces out there watching and waiting. As the skies cleared and the sun shone down on a planet still in the process of healing, Jack stood on the edge of the crystal's remains, contemplating the future. Earth had been given a second chance, but now it was up to humanity to protect it, and to prepare for whatever else might come. The world had been saved, but the war for survival was just beginning.